It is so good to see all of you today, and it is so wonderful that everybody can be here on such a nice, sunny, and glorious day. I want to thank John Case for being here to preach today. We don't often get a lot of opportunities for a coaching sermon, so I'm looking forward to that. He's going to be teaching us how to become better allies by using our own personal story. So that's what we're doing today. I would also like to thank Angie for being here playing the guitar. I love that. That's wonderful. And before we begin, can we take a moment just to meditate? Go ahead and close your eyes for a moment. And think about all that we're grateful for. As the sun comes in, I am most grateful for the sun. And being here in Denver has given me a new appreciation for it. But give yourself a moment to think of what you yourself are grateful for. I am grateful that we can all be here in community together. I'm grateful for all of you who have enriched my life and enriched our worship experience. Chapel isn't just about being close to God for me, it's also about being close to each other. So I thank you all for that. Without further ado, John Case.
If you don't mind, I'm going to take the mic out. I'm a walker. Now, how does one, I'm not even going to say how does one become an ally. I'm going to say how does one discover that they are. With me, I grew up in a very conservative family. The church was a sister organization of the Utah Mormons. So when it came time to decide to be baptized in that particular denomination, around 8 is when most people do it. I was a slow bloomer. I kept putting it off, saying, I don't know if it's time yet. Finally, just before my 10th birthday, my mother had a nice little conversation with me and basically shamed me into it. From there, I'd always been very attentive in class, in Sunday school classes, actually challenged teachers occasionally on their interpretation of different readings. But I also had a grandfather that was what they called a 70, which was a traveling minister. Also, my grandfather helped organize different congregations and was a historian for that church. So I got to learn some of the good things, some of the bad things, what made them become what they were. Now, growing up, going through school, basically the same as everybody else. And then I had a job where we ran a data center, 2 of us. And then somebody decided that it was time for me to learn something about my coworker that I apparently didn't know. She's a lesbian. So, this particular person was a very, very good friend. Because of some of the issues that I was dealing with a very conservative family, as well as a son who at one point had adhered to one of the less admirable approaches of because gay is so different, they should be killed. She and I had an awful lot of continuing conversation about those things. And I would explain my responses. So she decided not to challenge me with that additional information. When I did finally, 5 years later, have an opportunity to tell her that I knew, it was one of those things where she had been putting it off for 2 years deliberately. And finally, I just confronted her in a quiet hall and said, I've been told this, and it doesn't matter. And it was funny. The first sentence was, the breath came in. The second sentence, the breath went out, and a smile came on. Now, at the same time, that particular quiet section of hall, there was my office and a dear friend's office, both of us. And we both knew she was lesbian as well. So it was a perfect place. Even if somebody came into the hall, no challenge, no discomfort, I'll put it that way. Now time went on, and I was doing things to try to help. I actually had 2 people in that congregation, or not that congregation, but in that denomination, that I knew these young men. Great talent, great capability. One didn't have a lot of education, but was an excellent mechanic. The other one became a very good teacher, middle school. Both of them discovered something that their families couldn't accept. Now, there is an organization called the Family Acceptance Project that has done an awful lot of research on what happens as children understand that they don't fit where their family wants them to fit. And what happens if the family says, that's okay, I love you, what can I do to support you? And what happens if the family says, that's not where I want you to be? You either change to fit us and our expectations, or you're gone. We don't consider you family. These 2 young men, both, because of that alienation, took their own lives. This was 18 months before I had to confront my own son. You see, he was working part-time, coming down here to the Denver Institute of Art, and tired, but a growing depression. Now, some of the other education I had done, I had become a very, very attuned person who had some psychology training, was a teacher in mathematics, and actually part of my career as a teacher, I also did drug counseling for youth. So I was trained to start looking for that kind of thing. And I just saw this, what I'll call a black mood, was just growing and getting deeper. And finally one night, I just said, we have to talk. Well, I'm awful busy, Dad. Yep, I understand. But if we don't talk, you're going to get dangerous, possibly to yourself. Okay, get Mom. Now this goes to storytelling, because one of the things to make a story stick, to make a story mean something to the person you're telling it to, you paint a picture. So in this situation, and then also, don't paint a picture that wasn't. Take that picture of the event, paint it vividly in your mind, and that way you can paint it vividly with words. My son was at the top of the stairs at our house. Mom came in, she sat at the bottom of the stairs, and I just stood and leaned against the post at the bottom of the stairs, looking up. He says, well, I think I may be gay. Okay. Says, I wasn't sure how you would react. I didn't want to hurt the family. I says, well, let's not worry about the family. It's us and you. Let's deal with what you need. Now, Mom surprised him. Mom said, well, I'm not sure I know you. See, Mom had a real rigid concept of what he was, and it wasn't there. He wasn't that rigid concept. Me, I surprised him as well. I said, well, my understanding of sexuality is nobody is all one or the other. So let's just find out where you are and what we can do to make it so you can be happy and do what you need to do. I said, okay, am I done now? I said, yeah. But we are going to talk again. I says, and I want to know, and you can talk to some of your friends, give me a little bibliography of where I can go and read or where I can go and hear to understand more where you are and what I can do to help. So he did. He had a friend, also gay, working on, actually completing his master's in sociology, and gave me some very good books. There's one that is a textbook, dry, but is so good. And so I started reading that one because it covers from pre-Columbian years, different segments of the world, all the way up through 1900. So huge piece of information. Now, where do I go from the story of the stairs? Well, one thing I didn't tell you, there was a phrase. Now, it shows my age because I grew up, TV was all Westerns. Because when my son said I'm gay, the phrase that came to my mind was circle the wagons. Remember I told you about the two young men? Because of that depression, that was a real threat here. How to make that not happen, if at all possible. And so here again was the emotional tie. But then too, when we're talking about allies, what is an ally? And who can you be an ally with? One item that just struck me last night, probably for the 10th or 11th time, what is going on in Flint, Michigan? Those people have been ignored, but at the same time they've been abused. How to be an ally? First, listen to them. Now, some of the things that I've learned about being an ally, and I'll just give you a few credentials right now. This coming Monday, I'm going to be officially named president of a new organization in Larimer and Weld County called Northern Colorado Equality. I am also president of PFLAG Fort Collins. I am a co-chair of the state coalition of PFLAG chapters. And PFLAG is where I started learning. How do I tell my story? But that didn't stop there, because we have a very, very good diversity council and what they call a resource center at CSU. They have an organization called Visible Voices. Visible Voices takes 2 days out of your life to teach you how to take your story and bring it down. And so it starts out where in classes and organizations across campus or throughout the region that want to hear about LGBT, which is gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and how things work with you, how you come out, or an ally, how do you come out? There is an old joke that when a child comes out as LGBT, the family goes in the closet. Because now the family has to process and come out as support, as ally. Now, part of doing Visible Voices is also learning different types of messaging. So one of the things to do as an ally, and I have very good friends. One, I'll just describe her. Jackie is a person who loves to ride her Harley. But because of the situations where she grew up, Wyoming, to feel safe, she carries a .45 holster. And she knows how to use it. And yet, Jackie tells me that she feels more safe with people like me than with her gun. And part of that is that being an ally and doing the things I try to do, I don't say, well, I know how to fix this. Because number one, I am not transgender. I am not gay. I am not lesbian. So I can empathize, but I don't know. So what I do is say, what do I need to do to make this place safer? What do you want to try to accomplish? What do you want to try to do, and how can I help? In fact, that's what I've done with Northern Colorado Equality. They said, we don't have an organization anymore. Because at that particular point in time, the LGBT Center of Colorado, which is centered here in Denver, had said, we don't know how to do this, and so we're going to withdraw. Because they had a chapter in Fort Collins for about 2 years. So once again, what can I do to help? Well, we know how the programs run, and we can do that, but we don't know the first thing about the legalities of a 501c3. So guess who went and did the research, filled out the paperwork, got it all done. But that is what an ally does. You know, even in some of the classes that I've had here at ILF, when the white people tried to help the black people, pre-Civil War and after Civil War, too often they said, we know what you need, instead of saying, what can we do? This is a part of being an ally. Now, scary part about being an ally, you could be at risk. Now, one time when I was an ally in college, I didn't even call it that. But there was a 6'7" person who decided to be a bully to a 4'8" person. What the 6'7" person didn't understand, I was probably helping them more than the other one. Because you see, the 4'8" person was an ex-ranger from Vietnam. But the situation was, It didn't need to get violent. What needed to happen was communication. And so I stepped between these two people. The tall person got upset, but apologized later. The short person waited until the large person had left and thanked me profusely, because with the training that person had, they could have gotten in trouble if they'd have done anything damaging. That's an ally. Some people call it compassion. I say it's being human. But what are other stories that you can tell? Back when we were talking about whether or not there could be marriage for same-sex couples, I told this story. I was working at IBM at the time, working second shift, about an hour and a half into the shift. I get this quick, urgent phone call from my wife. I've had an accident. I'm trapped in the car. And they say I'm going to have to go to the hospital. I hope they don't take me to hospital A because I want to go to B. And I think the car is probably totaled. Okay. Let me take care of things here, and I'll be up and see you just as quickly as I can. So made a few phone calls, found out a way of getting out of there. And this was in Boulder. So rush up from Boulder to Loveland, about half an hour drive. Get to the place of the accident. They've done a good job. You can't even see the mess on the street. Now where to go? Well, home is between here and wherever I'm going to go, so I'm going to go there. So went home, dropped off the stuff from work, picked up the phone, made a call to the police department, found out that she had gone. What they had done is between A and B hospitals, B had been designated a trauma center, and that's where she was being taken. Thank you very much. So I went, go to hospital B, and walked into the emergency room, said, I'm here to see my wife. Then they said, okay, just a second, we'll get you back there. Took me in. She had a broken kneecap. She was pretty lucky. But she was so relieved to see me. The situation was, though, I had the privilege of walking in, announcing a relationship, and I was conducted in. Without the relationship and without the rights, I've got a son, and my son's partner at the time, now husband, couldn't have done that. Now comes the last part to a good story. Can you help me work so that people that love each other can all have the same rights? That's what a story does. It pulls people in, gives them an image, a drama with a solution, and then an ask to go ahead and bring it all together. Why did I spend this time with you? Why did you spend this time with me? How do we go forward? Now, another ally situation that is all over this country, even in this state, unfortunately, equal pay for equal work. It's one situation with women. It's another situation with Asians. It's another situation with blacks. It's another situation with Latinas and Latinos. Allies don't just do one thing. If you're like me, the problem is not staying busy. It's knowing when you're too busy. So then, what are some of the stories that you can think of? Situations, things that you have lived through, and how could they be otherwise? Better, or with the lack of privilege, worse? These are the things we need to all concentrate on. That is how you become an ally. Not by being knowledgeable, by admitting ignorance and opening yourself up to their knowledge. Thank you. No, that's right. Oh, one other thing. We're going to end with a song. It's on page 572. The name of it is Pass It On.